Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Just Do It, the podcast by the Jews for the Jews. This week's episode has two new guest hosts filling in for Molly, Hannah and Nicole. Anyways, picture this. It is 1865, and a new phenomenon is sweeping through the Ashkenazi Jewish community, denominations. Today we are focusing on Ultra-Orthodoxy.
Ooh, my favorite. I can't wait to answer all of today's essential questions and listen to interesting guests talk more about the denomination. So, Hannah, what are today's essential questions?
Well, let's start with the first one. What challenges are European Jews facing due to the emergence of the Shulchan Aruch? Before we even begin to answer that, maybe we should learn a little background information and then move on from there.
That's a good idea. Maybe we should hear the information from our first guest, our resident expert on the Shulchan Aruch, Mr. Moshe Ben Yaakov.
I hear Mr. Moshe Ben Yaakov is truly an expert on this topic. He has been studying it for quite some time now, and let's just say he has some pretty strong opinions about it.
Nicole, I'm not so sure what you mean by that, but welcome, Mr. Moshe Ben Yaakov.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I can't wait to talk all about that Shulchan Aruch. Oh, by the way, you can call me Moshe for short.
So, Moshe, what's the Shulchan Aruch, and why do you like it so much?
Well, you need some context first. Between the middle of the 14th century and the end of the 15th century, a series of decisive historical events influenced Jewish life, leading to the uprooting and resettlement of entire Jewish communities. This process brought up several halakhic problems due to conflicts between the established communities and the new arrivals. By the 16th century, a comprehensive code of Jewish law was extremely necessary since the local judges could not keep the proliferation of responsa up to date. So, Rabbi Joseph Caro then formed what is known as the Shulchan Aruch, the authoritative and binding halakhic code for the world of Jewry, which provided the Jews with a unified and set code that decided the laws throughout the 17th century.
Okay, now I understand what it is. Why do you like it?
I love it because it finally gives us a set of code to follow. No more things to interpret by ourselves. It's so frustrating to listen to people complain and argue over what to do and what to follow. I believe that the Shulchan Aruch is the most efficient source of information. Now everyone can follow the rules from the same source. We can truly be a unified nation.
Whoa, that was one long explanation.
Thank you so much for coming and talking with us. We hope to see you again. Now that we know a little more about the Shulchan Aruch, we can respond to the first essential question, which was, what challenges were the European Jews facing due to the emergence of the Shulchan Aruch?
Well, not all Jews were as enthusiastic as Moshe Ben Yaakov and believed that having this unified code would result in some uneasiness within the Jewish population. Jews believe that the Shulchan Aruch left no room for questioning one's own ideas and beliefs, as it completely removed the Talmudic aspect of Judaism and relying on the Talmudic sources when deciding the laws. They felt that there was no value in looking up the answer and wanted their rabbis to regain the freedom of interpreting and deciding the laws based on halakhic principle of Hilketa ki vetrai, which granted the rabbis permission to create the law codes.
I see why some Jews felt that way, since all of a sudden they neglected the study of Torah, Mishnah, and Talmud and decided the laws with a document that didn't even require any mental effort to decide them.
Exactly, Hannah. It completely removed the Talmudic aspect of Judaism, and Jews were upset that their rabbis don't have this power to decide anymore.
Well, now that we know all about the Shulchan Aruch and the challenges the Jews face from it, we can move on. But first, a quick word from our sponsors.
They were emancipated and accepted into society. Jews were expected to intermarry, become part of the politics of society, be a part of the public legal system, which included Christians, have occupational freedom, and were expected to live integrated within civilization. It was a very difficult transition for the Jews, since they were not ready to fully give up their Jewish identities for nationalism and simply forgive the Christians for treating them like outsiders the past few years in Europe.
Yeah, that seems really hard. Imagine being forced to live separately and all of a sudden people accepting you and wanting you to be part of their society.
Exactly. Jews were used to being in their own nation, separated from the rest of Christian civilization. But now that they were considered equal citizens, they needed to figure out how to transition from being their own nation state and become part of another nation.
And what about the ultra-Orthodox people? How did they react?
The ultra-Orthodox Jews did not want to assimilate into Christian society, while the other branches did. Other branches made the halacha open to interpretation in order to better fit into Christian society. Some even integrated German into their prayers and studies. However, the ultra-Orthodox Jews did not conform to these actions and remained strict followers of the Shulchan Aruch and its policies.
Wow, Hannah, thank you so much for teaching us so much about the Jews during the time of the Enlightenment, nationalism, and emancipation.
Of course.
Now time for a quick commercial break.
Take the best language, French, room 209. French 1.
Welcome back to Just Do It.
Our next two questions get back to the root of our show's daily topic. Why is the movement you are reporting on emerging now? And what are the defining characteristics of the movement you are reporting on?
Those are some great questions. I am so excited to hear how the ultra-Orthodox denomination came to be.
Me too. To answer these lovely questions, we are inviting Mordechai, a man who truly believes that the Jewish people need the ultra-Orthodox movement and see the opening for it within the world of Jewry.
Welcome, Mordechai, and thank you so much for coming on to Just Do It.
No, thank you for having me. I've already been briefed on the two main questions I am supposed to focus on, so let's dive right in.
Sounds good.
There are a few reasons why the ultra-Orthodox movement is emerging right now. The first being that Jews in Christian Europe were looking for something to unify them during these troubling times of the Enlightenment and nationalism. They were forced to change their whole perspective on life and to be patriotic for a nation they did not feel a part of. The ultra-Orthodox Jews also challenged the Enlightenment philosophy and were not happy with this whole think for yourself movement.
So how exactly did ultra-Orthodoxy come to be?
Well, let's start with the founder of this movement. There's a man named Moses Sofer, a famous rabbi and halakhic figure who is well known for his contributions and founding of the ultra-Orthodox denomination.
Could you tell us a little more about him?
Yes, he spent 33 years in Hungary and establishing a yeshiva until he witnessed tensions and struggles within the Jewish communities in Europe. So he decided to create this movement that purely follows the Shulchan Aruch and will not assimilate with any of the other social culture changes going around them.
Anything else we should know?
Well, he disassociated himself from the battle of emancipation because he viewed that the desire for equality as a sign for dissatisfaction with the traditional Ashkenazi Jewish way of life was a desire for assimilation with the Gentile culture.
Wow, so interesting.
But wait, my analysis doesn't stop there. I also wanted to explain to you exactly what is emerging now. The Orthodox movement mainly consists of the following Shulchan Aruch, which I'm sure you guys know about by now.
Yes, we know a lot about it.
Well, in addition to being strict followers of the Shulchan Aruch, the ultra-Orthodox Jews do not believe in any more innovations, meaning that Judaism should stay how it is and not change any of its tradition or values.
Wow, I never heard that before. It's kind of contradictory since Judaism emerged from several innovations starting from the time of the Gaonim.
Yes, I see where you're coming from, but what they're trying to say is that Judaism should remain how it is now and not have any further innovations.
I see.
Well, Mordechai, thank you so much for joining us on Just Do It. I definitely learned a lot about the ultra-Orthodox movement and how it came to be such a large part of world Jewry.
Thank you for having me.
And now for our final question of the day, we are inviting on one more guest to help us answer it.
That's right, we are. Our last question is, how is the movement you are reporting on responding to other emerging movements?
Wow, that is a great question. I'm so curious to hear about how the ultra-Orthodox Jews responded to Reform, positive historical, and modern Orthodox movements.
Me too. Our guest for this last question is Shlomo, an ultra-Orthodox Jew here in Christian Europe.
Thank you so much for coming, Shlomo.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Pressed for time, so we're going to do a speed round. Can you answer the final essential question relatively quickly? We promise we won't interrupt you.
Yes, that actually sounds like a really fun challenge. Let me begin. So as you know, there are a few movements emerging here, like the Reform movement, modern Orthodoxy, and positive historical Judaism. I'm speaking here as a part of the ultra-Orthodox community and can say for all my fellow peers that we are not happy with these emerging branches of Judaism. These movements adopted Judaism in different variations to make it more assimilated with Christian society. And the Sofer became the undisputed leader of the rabbis of Europe, who organized themselves to frustrate the efforts of the Reform movement in Berlin, Hamburg, and Vienna. Since there's much change in Judaism, we want to preserve it and not change our way of life like the other denominations are. Our Our motto is to preserve is Hadesh Ashur Min HaTorah, which decided that there shall be no further innovations in Judaism and forbade any change in previous customs and beliefs. Furthermore, the Shofar declared total war against the battle of modernity and did not agree with the motivations or policies of the New Reform and Modern Orthodoxy movements.
Wow, thank you so much. That was super quick and efficient.
That's for sure. Thank you so much for coming, Shlomo, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in this week. See you next time on Just Do It.